Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your host for the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. Oh, yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm really super duper excited to introduce Phillip Montrose. Phillip and his wife are pioneers and innovators in the realms of spiritual growth and healing. Phillip Montrose and his wife partner Jane are holistic coaches, energy healers, and authors of many books, including Getting Through to Your Emotions with EFT, also known as Emotional Freedom Technique or Emotional Freedom Tapping, Getting Through to Your Soul, and The Ultimate Paradigm Shift. The mission of Awakenings Institute, their nonprofit organization, is to facilitate the unique gifts that each individual brings, receive honor and respect. We're all nurtured and allowing in their gifts to blossom. He also has a new book called The Loving Power of Your Soul, a guidebook for realizing your true potential. Did I say all that correct, Phillip?
You did. That's right. Yeah, that is correct.
Well, welcome to A Little Less Fear podcast. What can you tell us about your journey and where you are today?
I'm in the second half of my life, shall we say. So things sort of shift at a certain point when you realize that you're sort of not in an seemingly endless youth where you're just going to live, almost forever because you don't think about aging that much when you're younger. Most people don't. But if you have a condition or a serious challenge, you might, or something life-threatening. But as I've gotten into this seventh decade, I feel like I'm in some ways just beginning in my life. And I think the intense spiritual journey, Lino, started with realizing there's more to life than just getting by and surviving and making ends meet and getting a job, and the kind of traditional conventional status quo, as I kind of say, CNN reality. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with it, except it's extremely limited if that's your whole aspiration and that's all you've got. And I'm sure people who listen to your wonderful podcast, A Little Less Fear, want to have a lot more hope and confidence and life purpose, which is what my journey led me to. And with my wife and partner, Jane Mountrose, and I, we started exploring healing, holistic healing. We were originally in a kind of cultic spiritual organization group. It turned out to be just another spiritual group. Most spiritual groups do have cultic elements. What's a cult? A cult is where you're sort of confined and have limited thoughts and a lot of programming and are sort of controlled or following a leader. Mm-hmm. Some people view religions that way and follow religions like a big cult. It's kind of a limiting things. And there's many wonderful things about religions that I've learned and used, and there was many wonderful things about this spiritual group, but the limitations became more and more painfully obvious of having to go through a leader for your ultimate truth. And most people, Lino, and maybe I'm sure you interview people, maybe yourself, go to a place where you are looking for help, and that's important.
In fact, talking about spiritual health, right?
Spiritual help,
right?
And it could be a guru, an organization, and that's very useful. And it's a step for ultimately self-mastery if you want to go that far in this lifetime.
Yes.
But if you look at it as an end-all, be-all, it's very disillusioning after a while, and it's kind of like you put all your chips in one basket, all your birds in one nest, or whatever.
Can't happen, definitely.
Yeah, and you don't diversify, as they say in the stock market. So then when you realize that there's a limit, you kind of see through the leader. There's maybe, as there often is, corruption, power, money, and so forth, even though they're wonderful teachings and things you've learned. Mm-hmm. You have to break away from that organization to grow, which is what I did. And as I said, part of awakening I realized then was healing myself, areas where, I was incomplete, things that weren't working in my life. Mm-hmm. How do you figure out something's not working in your life? Well, you continually have sort of the same problems show up, the same kind of people, the same reactions, which are very unpleasant and stressful. Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the same patterns, looking at the patterns that are in your life and trying to find the common denominator.
Right. And the good news, the big picture news, which we'll probably talk a little bit more about, is that is an opening, a portal, actually a key factor
Window of opportunity.
that we must have those discomforts and disruptions and challenges and losses, or we'd be floating around, everything would be beautiful. If you came in and say, Philip, hey, how's it been? Everything's been wonderful, it's been smooth, everything I've dealt with, it's been an easy journey, I figured it all out right away, it's an incredible life. And all of our journeys could be expressed that way, but then the other part often gets us to that wonderful manifestation and growth and bliss and awareness and evolution and further deepening love. So going back to finishing my story here, sort of a little roundabout way, I know. We meaning my wife and partner Jane Mountrose and I met her in that spiritual organization that we left. Went into things like holistic hypnotherapy. This was in our 30s or 40s by then, in the 1990s, and studied that deeply, started helping people individually, started training, even publishing books. And meanwhile, though, we had a conventional jobs and had some of the trappings, I guess you could say, of success, a house and cars and so forth. Jane was an architect. She's very brilliant, very creative. I was an educator. And yet at a certain point, it kind of lost its meaning altogether. And something that we kind of starting a holding place, a beginning place. For many people, sooner or later, they burn out. They have the proverbial midlife crisis or transition. It's easier if it's a transition. And that happened to her. She became chronically ill. She really couldn't go to work anymore. And finally, she started, first of all, full-time going into this work of healing and coaching and spiritual development, helping people through our trainings, individual, group work, and publications. And I eventually just kind of lost the momentum of teaching. It was useful, valuable, but it really lost its luster. And then I joined her full-time, and we founded, last part of my story here, we founded Awakenings Institute, a nonprofit organization you mentioned at the beginning, devoted to making the world a more loving place where everyone's gifts are honored, including nature's.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your Awakenings Institute? What is the goal? How do you get clients? What happens within that organization?
Yes. Well, at a certain point, Lino, we realized that we were on a more spiritual, explicitly spiritual path, as you can kind of imagine. I mean, in the 1990s, talking about life purpose and spiritual development and having spiritual healing methodologies, which we still use and work very well, was much farther out and much farther away from the mainstream than it is today, although it's becoming more accepted, of course. And that made us seek, well, maybe we should... How could we sort of position ourselves or feel supported? And a lot of holistic, spiritually minded people are lacking support and think they can't get support and have to go it alone, which is a serious mistake, by the way, that people are commonly fall into. So what could we do? Fortunately, we had each other. Well, we researched forming a nonprofit 501c religious organization, and that gives you a lot of protections in the state. We first of all tried it with another organization, and we were trained, but it wasn't quite right. So we said, I guess we have to do it on our own. And it was kind of a position, a place to be. We do ordain ministers in holistic healing. It's non-denominational. It's not religious in any ways. It's more of a background, a foundation of what we're doing through our holistic coaching and healing. And it's kind of a way of belonging or positioning or feeling supported in the universe and our mission here.
You mentioned the 90s and how things are a little more accepting now. How have you seen the paradigm shift?
Right. Well, since the internet, we started before the internet. Our website, gettingthrough.org, gettingthru.org, we started in 1997, Lino. So we keep developing it. So you can imagine it's a very big website of trainings, downloads, videos, blogs for over many years.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just, that was really in the early 2000s that people even just the things that are, basic to the internet now weren't even around, or were just like, how do you even put something up on the internet was like a pretty
Oh
big,
yeah,
challenge at that
and
point.
very slow at the time.
Very slow, right? So all of that was just starting to, there wasn't a lot of connectivity and a lot of ways to connect with people. So we would originally have our holistic coaching and healing live program either in a local office or our home office with a small group of people, and that evolved into online trainings.
Wow.
And when our first book, just to tell you a relevant story here
Sure.
that you might enjoy and your listeners might enjoy, our one of our first books was I actually wrote a book, since it's an educator, called Getting Through to Kids, about communicating with children. And after that, we wrote that book you mentioned, Getting Through to Your Emotions with EFT. Now this is 1999, 2000. It's a very popular sort of foundational book on EFT, and it's a holistic approach even then. So we had a book distributor, right? And we sent them all these books, and it was very physical and manual, and getting them published, thousands of books, etc. And it took a while to get money, any earnings in that. And we finally were starting to make money, and then the company went bankrupt
Oh, geez.
before we were paid at all a cent.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're saying, here's all these books we've invested, we've lost. What are
Oh,
we going to
man.
do? But you know what? Something as synchronicity would have it, if you're following your heart, if you keep at it, things happen, right?
For a reason, yeah.
And what happened is this little company called Amazon.com came along. And we put our books up on Amazon.com. And guess what? They were quite successful. So things work out if you keep going. You have to go through some intervals. There's a lot of leaps of faith if you want to fulfill your purpose in the spiritual path. You have to continually take leaps of faith and reinvent yourself. But if you're willing to do it, it can work out really well, and again, get the support. And if not, what's the alternative?
I have a question in regards to EFT. How is EFT connected spirituality to spirituality?
Right. That's a very good question. EFT, the emotional freedom techniques, started in 1990. A therapist did some tapping on acupressure points, like points for acupuncture with needles, but just tapped with his fingers, and he healed this person instantaneously, one of his clients. And Gary Craig, who studied with this man, Roger Callahan was the originator's name, evolved it, adapted it into something called emotional freedom technique. And then other people like myself, early adopters in the 1990s, found different ways of doing, and there's a variety of ways. Ours was a more holistic way, which we've continued to evolve. And in terms of spirituality, the EFT is based on sort of a holistic, pretty much a holistic approach based on Eastern medicine, meridians, energy circuits, the energy behind your physical body, your chi, your life force. We all have that. That's something probably pretty acceptable, especially to people like you and your audience. Right. So that's connecting with sort of more spiritualized awareness, right? We like to take it really further, though, because some people have sort of standardized it and made it like sort of a more, maybe an upper grade pill where you do these tapping and say these affirmations, which is part of it. Mm-hmm. And then that solves your problem. And it sometimes does, miraculously so. But for deeper things, for life purpose, mm-hmm. which is based on your soul's plan, for those deeper, more metaphysical things, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing kind of questions, you really need to go deeper, because you're not going to just do some tapping points and say some affirmations and get this profound depth of why you incarnated on earth. So that's what we teach, different ways to get really deep and precise. And then we connect that more with the soul awareness, which we do with other healing modalities like spiritual kinesiology that we developed and other energy healing.
And so I'm imagining that by tapping, you open up those meridians, and that basically unblocks some anything that's stagnant or resistant to the thought that you're allowed to receive or allowing yourself to receive in order to find your life's purpose. Is that correct? That's what I'm imagining. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if it's life purpose, it could be anything. It could just be, to be more loving, the resolve of relationship, or get clarity on something. It could be a huge variety. It could be even physical things, physical pain. So it's partly, how you use it, the purpose of what you're using it for.
And as far as the different meridians, are they usually the same? There's about 9 that they use, correct?
Right. There's basic meridians. You can vary that. I think
Okay.
the interesting thing of EFT, which is just one of the things we do, although we've written a lot and sometimes people come to us through holistic EFT. We're actually just developed a new course on angelic EFT. It's a new course that just came out. And that's sort of tying the metaphysical, the more spiritual, the invisible support in with the more physical tapping. And I think it's a good bridge, EFT, because it's physical tapping. It's sort of a masculine thing where people can tap and they're, quote, doing something to heal.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of what's underneath that is most is the biggest essence, the biggest question, is because you can kind of change the surface, or in other words, address the surface, like I don't feel pain, I feel calmer, which is great, but you don't have a deeper understanding. If needed, you don't always need to understand things deeply.
How else is the Awakening Institute helping individuals reach their higher purpose? Is it through also, is there a type of meditation that you all do together, or are there homework assignments? Is it a retreat? I mean, what are the different ways that the Awakenings Institute are helping individuals come to their higher self?
Yes. Well, we have a lot of free offerings on our gettingthrough.org, gettingthru.org. I have to say that because it's spelled unusually. We developed that name in 1997. What would be a name for a website, so. And so there are blogs, articles, videos, many of them very targeted on how to awaken and how to heal. And then there's a lot of trainings we've done, home study certification courses in EFT, holistic EFT, spiritual kinesiology, and more. We have a year coaching and healing live program certification and coaching and healing with EFT and more. We have a new course, as I mentioned, which is called Abundant Living with Angels, Oracles, and EFT. And so we do have that nonprofit, or we ordain people in case they're interested in that to be holistic ministers. So we actually offer a lot of things. But I think the place to come to conclude your question is really our new book, The Loving Power of Your Soul. Isn't that a nice cover my wife designed?
Just the book, it's just the cover itself. It looks incredible.
Yeah, my wife is very creative artistically, among many other talents she has. And The Loving Power of Your Soul, how does Awakenings Institute help people? Your question. That book is all about the 30-year journey of our contributing to people and awakening and our purpose. And it's how to connect and live by the soul, how to understand how that works in your everyday life, we have 6 different ways to easily consciously connect with your soul, which helps you evolve. And we also go into holistic EFT, which we started to talk about, and spiritual kinesiology, another energy healing modality we develop, which we think is as powerful, in some ways more powerful than EFT, because it's directly soul connected. And it's complementary to other modalities. You can mix and match. And so it brings all these things together, the encapsulation of about 30 years of work in an easy to read how-to book with a lot of case studies and research in it too.
Phillip, do you ever get, or have you ever had a situation where somebody says, well, I'm here because my spouse or my friend or my partner dragged me here, but I'm not really spiritual. I'm not sure about the whole spiritual thing. Because I've come across a lot of people that are not spiritual, and sometimes it kind of just puts a big wall up, and I feel like I can't cross that wall.
Right.
How do you cross over that wall, or do you let them figure it out on their own?
You just answered your own question. We don't work with people like that because they don't want to be worked with. It's all spiritual evolution is all self-initiated. You can't force anyone. It's like hypnotherapy that we teach. You can't hypnotize me. You're right. Hypnosis, which we're in and out all day, every day. It's brain waves. It's relaxation. It's like saying you can't make me relax. Well, probably not, because if you're going to be here like with your arms closed and distancing and blocking me, you're right. You can't. I don't believe in spirituality. That's all bunk. That doesn't make, I don't believe in any of that. Okay, that's your belief. I can't If
True.
you want to change that, if you're open to it, I can help you. Yes. So if someone says, I've got a, sister, brother, who you could really help, you're perfect. You have exact, I just say, have them come and talk to me. And if they want to, if they initiate it, I'll be happy to talk with them.
But it's never a good idea to force anybody with anything. So yeah, that totally makes sense. That's
Yeah.
great.
Do you want to be forced into doing something you don't want to do?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
None of us
Tell
do.
us more about your book. It's a guidebook for realizing your true potential. So at the end of the book, do you feel that a reader is going to be able to feel a little bit more awakened?
Oh, yes, because all our books are very practical and easy to read, Lino. And in this one, as I mentioned, there's 6 easy to do ways, which I might want to go through with one, demonstrate one right here, because it's pretty
Sure.
brief and effective. And as you learn these processes, which are written out in the book, and do them and practice them, and that's how that's where we got our success. We started learning these about 30 years ago, some of these, and developed some on our own, and other people have soul connected, which you can do at any moment just by being awake in the moment. And so if you do them and start to do them regularly, they become part of who you are, and you actually grow your energy, your spirit, your soul develops, your whole being awakens to where you are in your life and what you're doing and what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, what's more soulful and on your path and what's not.
Is there a difference between awakened and enlightened?
I think they're just different terms. And awakened is kind of an interesting term, because if you think of it, what is the opposite of being awakened?
Yeah, it's kind of like you've been sleeping the whole time.
That's an interesting thing to ponder. So if we're sleeping, what does that mean? Well, what do you mean I'm sleeping? I'm listening, I'm paying attention, my eyes are open, I'm writing, I'm talking. Yes, that's all done very automatically, based on programs.
Yeah.
Where do those programs come from?
The outside.
Right, and usually from parents and authorities when you are very young.
Yeah.
Informed, and just sort of, it's kind of interesting that we're put in a world where we're sort of open books and being formed by these parents. And that's why people think and people believe, in, as I certainly do, that you didn't accidentally get the parents you did. Because why, and if you do, then it's just a completely random world. I mean, you're just thrown in like a, everything just happens by accident, by sheer, like, how did this, or it's just physical, there's nothing before or after. You're in the physical materialistic world. But if there's a reason you have your parents, even if it's a horrible, terrible, abusive relationships, which so many are, there's something there, and they're programming you just like they were programmed by what they're saying and doing, which is coming automatically, and it's forming you, and you're getting a lot of trauma and thought processes and ways of viewing the world, which then you, if you want to awaken, that's actually, as we said, the spur, the motivation, the discomfort to awaken in the journey, and there's stages to do that.
That sounds awesome. That sounds incredible.
It is. That's our journey of awakening, all of ours.
What is the most important thing that you want the mass audience to understand, to know, to learn?
Well, I would say to be aware that you can connect with your soul at any moment. And I think, as I said, we should do an experience just so people know more what
I would love to. Yes.
The words behind. And when you do that, that becomes more a shift on how you see the world. You're more than in the world, but not of the world. You're more understanding what you're doing here, that idea that you're a spiritual being in a human body. So we are both spiritual beings now. We are coming from spirit, you, me, and everyone else listening. We're inhabiting a human body, and it's just, it's hard to believe that that's not all there is. It's the physical world is so enveloping and consuming, and the veil is so thick, and yet it's there partly so we can actually experience the human and actually take this stuff seriously and really learn and grow and make a difference. So when we become more embodied and more aware, and we can do that very easily, the world is different. Just to say, am I coming from a soulful place? Am I coming from light and love and freedom and creativity? or am I coming, from fear and hardship and avoidance,
Yes. Is it coming from out of fear, or is it coming out of love?
Yeah, am I in a momentum? Am I doing just what I've always done? Am I thinking what I'm always thinking? Am I doing it because people around me are doing it, or I'm afraid what people are going to say if I don't do it, or that's what my parents, or that's what we've always done, and autopilot stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the human condition, people don't realize that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and they're actually thinking the other way around, if they even think that far.
Yeah, some do, some don't, and that's the journey. There's billions of people at different stages of evolution, different places and vantage points, which makes the world a very rich place, very challenging and turbulent, conflicting, full of conflict too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So what was an exercise that we could do to
Oh
just,
yeah, let's do that. Well, maybe we should just do a simple one of opening our heart
yeah.
in the short time we have. Um, and this is one way to do it, and a lot of people I think will really relate to this, and there are others if you don't, but you're just breathing into your heart and maybe putting your hand over your heart, and that's a signal. The heart meets with the soul. As you breathe into the heart, you relax your whole body on your in-breath, taking in your pure, clear energy and yourself, regrouping yourself, exhaling, releasing what you no longer need. Good. Breathing in through your nose and exhaling, releasing what you no longer need, taking back anything you need to take back of yourself, and releasing what you no longer need that's not part of you. And as you feel the love and energy and centeredness in your heart, just allow that to go a little deeper. And as you connect more deeply into your heart, you feel that connection with your soul. It's just a deeper connection, a more expansive one. It may be a knowing, a sensing, could be an image, or even sometimes messages can come. And you just open and kind of hang out there as that heart soul connection helps you accept yourself more, accept things, feel more peaceful, more expansive. And as you feel that connection even more, one more step, you imagine an opening above your head where you connect with everything in the universe. You always are, but now you consciously connect, bring that light of the universe directly into your being. Comes through your head, through your whole body and energy field, and you feel at one with everything and everyone. Yes, and there may be a message there for you. Sometimes people just get messages of relax, you're okay, or something else that could be soulful, and it might be quite simple. It might be a color, an image, a sound, a feeling, a knowingness. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, feel refreshed, alert, grounded in the room.
And I do.
I like the way you
What's
look there.
amazing? Thank you.
Yes.
You know what
If
what I
you're
love
not
about
seeing
this?
Lino, he had a big smile on his face and looked very relaxed, by the way, if you're not on the video part of this podcast.
Yeah, putting my hand on my chest, there's just such a loving feeling doing that. It's like giving myself a hug. It's really it's a beautiful feeling.
I like doing it looking in the mirror, just giving myself kind of a heart message, a heart love, a heart embrace whenever you're in front
Thank
of
you
a
so
mirror.
much for this.
Yeah,
Phillip Montrose, everybody on A Little Less Fear podcast. How can our audience, our viewers, and our listeners find you?
you bet. So our extensive website, as I mentioned, is gettingthrough.org. And I have a free gift for people who want a free download, holistic and spiritual resources, including an excerpt from our new book, The Loving Power of Your Soul, and a holistic EFT video and some more holistic resource list. So here's the tiny URL, easy to remember, to get your free download spiritual holistic kit, tinyurl.com/spiritual-kit. That's tinyurl.com/spiritual-kit. And if they want to connect with me or my wife and partner, Jane Mountrose, to see if they'd like to work with me personally, we can see if we're a good fit. That shortened website, tinyurl.com/heal-awake. tinyurl.com/heal-awake. And do you mind if I mention our new course on the
Please do. Please mention it.
okay, so it's a brand new course. We keep innovating and developing. We're sort of pioneers in personal transformation, my wife and I. And the new course is called Abundant Living with Angels, Oracles, and EFT. So people could learn angelic EFT. And this is a very affordable course. There's a tiny URL for that. tinyurl.com
I love that.
slash abundant dash living. tinyurl.com slash abundant dash living for the new Oracle, Angels, and EFT
That
Abundant
sounds like
Living
an
course.
amazing course, by the way.
Yep.
And how do we find your awesome new book?
The Loving Power of Your Soul is on Amazon, and it is a paperback book as well as a Kindle downloadable book.
Great.
It's very easy to read and a very practical how-to. You can look at it from just an overview to reading it quite in depth because there's a lot in it.
Thank you so much for being on A Little Less Fear podcast. I feel really relaxed and connected and lit up. Thank you so much for lighting up our viewers, our listeners, and our watchers. And I look forward to getting your book.
Thanks for having me, Lino.
Absolutely. Thank you. That was an awesome interview with Phillip Mountrose. He's an incredible author, spiritual healer, an energizer, a motivator, one to help you find your centered ground and your true purpose. Amazing healing energy, definitely, absolutely. I wanted to conclude with letting my listeners or viewers or watchers know that my Instagram was hacked and I'm not going to get it back. And I don't want it back. I just want to let it go. It is what it is. And basically a lot more secured now. And I started a brand new Instagram. So those that were following me before on Instagram, the handle was at Dr. Lino Martinez. Please block it if you haven't and click report. My new podcast is my new Instagram is at A Little Less Fear Podcast. That's the new handle. And also on Twitter, it's been changed to A Little Less Fear. And yeah, that's where you can follow me now. Thanks so much for your support. Thanks for your love, gratitude, grace, and all the goodwill for mankind. Let's keep going. Let's keep flowing. And let's keep sharing some love. Oh, yeah, and I can't forget, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You know, I wasn't too focused on YouTube because there's just so much to do. I'm a one-man show here. But I'm starting to realize how much I actually love YouTube and how much time I spend on YouTube. And it's like, what in the world? Why haven't I been telling people to subscribe to my YouTube channel? I don't know. But hey, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It keeps people motivated, it keeps people going, and we're here to make a difference and change the world. So please subscribe. Click subscribe. It's free to subscribe and spread the love. Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, you can find it on YouTube at A Little Less Fear Podcast.